Okay, so let's go over our basics for sewing. Now, right now I have my sewing kit, and each sewing kit should have one needle, and then some of them still have thread or yarn. If you don't have any yarn in your kit, then you can get some from the big white box. Just bring over some scissors. Now I have my needle with my yarn already threaded through with my knot tied at the end. Now when we are stitching, we have two different kinds of stitches we can do. There's the running stitch and the whip stitch. I'll show you the running stitch first. So I have my foam with holes already poked in it, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to thread it through the first hole. Now I'm not going to pull it all the way through because the hole is too big, so the knot can pull right through. So all I'm going to do is pull it until the knot reaches the end, and then I'll just hold it there while I'm working. So for the running stitch, you are going to go back and forth on what side you go in and come out. So I pull my needle through and I'm going to go in the same side and pull until my stitch is tight. So if I leave it loose like this, then I risk my yarn getting tangled and my stitch is not going to hold very well when I sew two things together. So you want to make sure that you pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to come back through the same side and pull all the way through again. So you can see there's a little gap between where my stitches come. And if I turn it over, you can see that's where my other stitch is. And I'll just keep going down just like that. Now when you are sewing, you want to make sure that you go all around the edge in a line, because if I were to jump from this corner all the way to this side, then I'd be sewing my foam together like this, and that's not what I want. So I want to make sure that I'm going in the hole that's right next to where I just was. I also want to be careful that my stitches aren't too far apart. So if I were to jump from here all the way to this side, then I have a really long stitch, and this is going to make a hole wherever. So if I were to stuff something, then it'd be a hole in my fabric and everything would fall out. So you want to make sure that your stitches are pretty close together so that we don't have any big gaps. Okay, now we'll go over the whip stitch. Now the whip stitch is different than the running stitch because we're not going back and forth but between the different sides. We're always going to put our needle in the same side. So I have my first stitch, and then instead of going in this way, I'm going to bring my needle over and come in through the back again. So when I pull it tight, my stitch wraps over the edge. Now you want to be careful because if the yarn is really long, it could get stuck on the corner. So if I pull it and I pull it tight, it's gonna kind of mess up my fabric. So make sure that if it gets stuck on anything, just kind of move it over closer to where you need it to land. Now, if we are getting ready to sew something like a pillow or a stuffed animal, we want to make sure that our pieces stay in place while we're sewing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my clothespins, and when I have everything lined up the way I want it to, I'll use my clothespins to hold it in place. Now when I sew, I'm going to start in one corner, and I'll go all the way around all the edges, but I'm going to leave a little hole at the end. Now, I want to stop when my yarn is about as long as from the tip of my finger to the bottom of my palm. Because if my yarn is too short, then I won't be able to tie a knot to finish it. So if you don't have enough yarn to finish it, stop when you have about this long. We'll tie a knot and then we can add more yarn to finish the rest of the pillow. To tie my finishing knot, I am going to put my needle under the last stitch that I just did. I'm going to take my yarn, wrap it around my needle, and pull it through. Then I'm just going to do that one more time. And then I can trim off the extra.